perfect. Well, thank you for that, Khan, and hello to anyone tuning in to see us today. So we're doing this through Zoom, Khan and myself, so we'll be sort of talking away, but please interact with us through the chat function. Khan will be keeping an eye on that, so any questions or anything you've got to sort of introduce us. My name's James, I'm the export manager at the brewery. We've got Khan, who's our marketing and social media coordinator as well. And so we'll be talking through the Explorer pack that hopefully lots of you have got in front of you this evening. We'll be talking about the beers. We'll talk a little bit about the brewery itself, the history. We'll tell you a little bit about, what we've been doing here at the brewery. I've been here many years now. Khan's been here. It's quite new to joining us. So hopefully give a little bit of perspective and behind the curtains on what it's like at the brewery at the moment. And yeah, please, like I say, any interaction, just keep any questions coming in and we'll be keeping an eye on those. But I don't want people getting thirsty. So what we'll do first off is crack into beer number 1. Now, don't feel, we're going to talk through all 8 beers in the pack. We're going to show you what they look like. Don't feel any pressure to drink along at that pace, of course. It's steady away, take it like that. If you want to have 1 beer with us, no beers with us, it's absolutely fine. Hopefully you'll just learn a little bit about the beers you're going to be drinking maybe over the weekend. So first beer we'll be tucking into, this is Shelby. So Shelby is our Peaky Blinders ale. It's actually, so we were approached by the team from Peaky Blinders, wanted to do their own beer. Fantastic, of course, a number of us at the brewery, myself included, watched the TV show Peaky Blinders. I'm looking forward to the new season. I actually don't know what date. It's coming out very soon. And once that's out, I'll be watching it again, looking forward to it. And so this beer is, to work with that, it is the official beer. And it's been a really, successful beer for us. We've managed to get it all over the place, into countries across Europe, across the UK here. And it's been very well received. And the aim was, we put it on the bottle, but we want to brew.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Sorry, no, of course not.
James, we might be having technical issues right away.
Yeah, no problem.
If anyone can hear somebody, Gillian looks like she can't hear us. Is there anyone else who can? Maybe drop us a comment just saying you can, even though we've been in a pandemic for 2 years now. I'd hope that I've sorted out how to use Zoom, but we are having problems hearing. Could somebody just, if you can hear us, please just comment below. Sound is fine here. Brilliant. Right, in that case, carry on, James. I'm really sorry for interrupting you there.
No problem at all. It's always tricky when there's lots of different layers of technology through Zoom and Facebook as well. But here, on that note, we'll start talking about this beer now. So Shelby, as I mentioned, and it does say it on the back there, we talk about this being a beer that they would have been enjoying in the Garrison. This kind of like classic British IPA, so all British ingredients. We're using a nice, mainly it's a malt, like nice British malt. We're using low color Maris Otter. Slightly darker grist as well going into it, just to give us this kind of nice light amber color too. And then it's all British malts, the Fuggles and Bramling Cross that we're using in here. And so when we do these tastings, we always like to firstly look at the beer. So we'll do these and, we're not trying to be a big wine tasting. We're not trying to be over the top. We want to enjoy the beer, of course, and we can talk through each one. But just to give you a starter on this first one, we'll have a look. I mentioned that light amber color. You got the really nice, good head retention on here, perfect white and a good bit of carbonation. So you can see just coming up in the glass there. And as we give it a swirl, it's always a good way to awake the aroma in your beer. Give it a swirl round, pop your nose in, just have a bit of a sniff. And you're going to start to get that kind of like lemony, citrusy, possibly a little orangey character coming through as well. And that'll follow through into the flavor too. So it's light, it's fresh, it comes in at 5%, so nothing too crazy, but a beer that we've really enjoyed making. As I say, there's enough Peaky Blinders fans at the brewery. So to get the opportunity to brew this kind of beer and actually be the official one as well has been really fun and a nice project for us too. So how have you found this one, Khan, so far?
Oh, I really rate it. I'm a big fan of Peaky Blinders since I started watching it when I was quite a few years ago when it started now. I was just completely hooked on it and really wanted to sit in that sort of setting surrounded by all these cool people. And it's just like a really good classic old-fashioned beer. Like many of us like drinking craft probably started with like English real ales, and it's very much like kind of like a slightly modern, fresher take on that, and I really like it.
Yeah, perfect. And that's, you know, what we're aiming for there as well. So this one you'll see in different formats. We do the bottles, we do cans as well, and we have different glassware and things for it too. But yeah, really an exciting beer for us to do.
I have Shelby glassware
Perfect.
myself.
There we
I got
go.
the pint.
Very on brand.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you wouldn't expect any less from the marketing team. So, and now we've got our first beer. Like I say, don't feel any pressure to drink along at the same pace, but we'll just talk through them. But as we've got a beer in hand here, I'll tell you a little bit about Thornbridge Brewery for those who are maybe tuning in to the first time, who've got a box as a gift or not had all our beers before. We began brewing in 2005, and we started at Thornbridge Hall. So Thornbridge Hall is this absolutely stunning country estate on the outskirts of Bakewell in Ashford-in-the-Water. And it's been, you know, a residence for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's been built up on over that time. And when in 2005, Jim and Simon had worked on a couple of businesses together before. They'd done some different products, but both were big beer fans. And Jim and Simon were the founders then. They're still the owners today. And they realized, you know, if they had access to Thornbridge Hall, for example, they would never, you know, drink other people's beer. Why would you? You've got the space for a brewery. So they took a secondhand brew kit, popped it into Thornbridge Hall in the old coach house, and started brewing beers on it. And we're brewing about 40 casks per day. And, you know, steadily getting it out. Lord Marple's was our first beer. Jaipur followed soon after. And Lord Marple's was going, you know, a classic bitter, 4% going out to the local area. And really just serving as this fantastic hand-pulled bitter. And that's also a beer that, you know, is still with us today. But then Jaipur came along, and that's the beer that really put us on the map. And actually, when we get to the DDH version, I'll talk a little bit more about the history of Jaipur, as it's got its own story in itself. There we are. Thank you, Khan. But then, so we were brewing for 4 years just at Thornbridge Hall. And then in 2009, we opened a much bigger facility in at Riverside Industrial Estate, just on the edge of Bakewell. So it's about a 5-minute walk outside of Bakewell. We put in a big state-of-the-art facility in there, brewing 50 hectoliters of beer each time. And slowly we've expanded the amount of tanks we have there, the amount of space that we have to brew into. We've put in a big bottling line, a canning line, and actually most recently now we've opened a tap room. So through the pandemic, we had a shop and a small tap room before, but with everything coming down to, you know, spacing between tables and people wanting lots of space to enjoy their drinking and eating as well, we found that we needed a bigger space. So we took on a larger warehouse space right next to the brewery, and we have lots of tables, a pizza kitchen, and actually in the pandemic as well, when we weren't needing as much cask beer from the hall, we actually moved our original kit down to the tap room. So come out and see us in Bakewell. You can see the progression of this story is now that we have the Thornbridge Hall brew kit right behind the bar. So you can actually come in. If you come in the daytime, you'll see our guys brewing up a great range of cask beers on there too. You can come in for the experience, for pizza as well. And really, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, a fantastic, you know, few years of brewing and expansion. And, you know, we end up brewing beers for Peaky Blinders. We brew all sorts of fun stuff too. So yeah, very exciting. Like I say, I've been around for quite a while, but Khan, for you, it's only been a few months now, I think. So how's it been for you kind of starting, really?
It's been so exciting. I have a long, varied background in all sorts of different industries, really. And I just really wanted to do a job which I really liked, which was working for a company I thought was really cool. So I started working here as part of the online team. If any of you bought the Explorer kit itself a couple of months ago, with me, who'd have picked that, packed it, and sent it off. But I think they thought that I might be better positioned in marketing and social media, which is what I'm doing now. But it's great. I just have an unlimited access to some of the best beer in the country, and that's so thrilling.
Perfect. Good. Well, no, it's nice to have you, you know, in part of the team there in our small, currently office space, which is should be expanding soon as well. And I suppose then that'll take us into the next bit. Cam, did you want to talk us through Bliss Point as well?
Yeah. Bliss Point is bit of a cult classic here at the brewery. Loads of us here really love it. When it came out, you'd see people like work using their employee discount, bringing crates and crates of it, walking through the brewery. So that's what we've got here. And at the same point, I'm going to address one of the comments we had from Jonathan about whether or not the glass is shaped like that for a specific reason. So by pouring it directly into this. So this is the Teku glass, which anyone with a kit would have had. And so the answer is yes. Yes, there is an aesthetic reason. It does look nice, but it also acts specifically to channel flavors directly into the nose and to aid with head retention. So especially with a hazy beer like this, you can see that the head stays there and you get the full aroma of it to your nose there as well. So as you smell that there, you'll be able to smell all the notes, which Bliss Point is. Well, that's the reason why it's everyone's favorite beer, really. There's huge tropical fruit flavors there. Like dragon fruit and mango are the points which we've written down there. That's just, it's such a fresh, tropical, fruity smell, followed by a very easy, clean, soft bitterness across your mouth. And it's just a really delicious beer. The name itself, Bliss Point, comes from a phrase in cooking for a specific combination of salt, fat, and sugar, which just tastes absolutely exceptional. It's a very, very precise ratio of flavors, which comes across as like a perfect food moment. And we thought when we were trying to create the same sort of thing in a modern hazy American pale ale style. A lot of the time you have West Coast IPAs, which are really, really bitter, or New England IPAs, which are really, really soft and juicy and fruity. And we wanted to have something which kind of walked that tightrope between these styles to create a really fresh, perfect, bliss-inducing beer. And I think it achieves that. Just like James said before, if you look at the color of it, it's difficult on my one because I've got the background. As a really,
hold mine up as well, Pam, don't worry.
It has this really beautiful light yellow haze through it, which is just really inviting, really juicy. And well, yeah, do you have anything to add to that, James? I'm just rambling about one of my favorite beers here. So
a firm favorite of mine for a while here. My background's not quite as fancy as yours. I've just got my plants here, so it's a little more visible, I suppose. But no, it's been a beer we've done. You know, we did it as a bit of a one-off before, and then brought it back as people just kept asking for it. It's gone into can, and yeah, a greatly demanded beer that we love. And actually, even on, you mentioned about the glassware as well. There, you got a question. So I've got one of these here, and a similar thing to, as you mentioned there, Khan, you were talking about the Teku having that sort of bowl where it brings in all the aroma and everything. And so if you're drinking out of a glass like this one as well, which, you know, of course, the Thornbridge one too, it's also created to allow that. So a lot of the time we're working with glassware on these different beer styles, and it creates that kind of bowl, and then it allows the aroma to really come through from there. We'll always have the nucleation on the bottom as well, which gives you that really nice carbonation. It helps to keep the beer going, keep it fizzy as well. And so, yeah, often when we're making these glasses that we're sending out, we like to do them be it the Teku or the other styles where they suit the beer well. So hopefully people are enjoying the Teku glasses there. Mine actually hasn't survived. I had one previously. I need a new one. So yeah, I'm currently working with these ones in the sort of more IPA Rastal style glass myself.
I had a couple before I even joined Thornbridge as well, which I will be drinking later West Coast IPA out of.
Nice. Good. Yeah, well suited, well set. And I mean, you mentioned about how you've been getting on at the start here, Calm, but how's it going? You know, now you're in the marketing team and everything. Have you got anything coming up, you know, yourself? Are you doing anything that we can talk about?
Oh, right. Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool events just coming up, which we're really looking forward to, which as marketing and events, we all work together to do that. So we just had quite a busy week, Thornbridge's Big Thursday, I think, where we had the open mic night at the tap room. We had tutored tastings at the Eagle in Sheffield. We had the really quite famous, now it made into the Manchester local newspaper, the crisp butty pairing that we had. We've had a lot going on this week. And so moving on, it's a bit more spread out, but we've got cool things coming up. For example, on the 17th of February, so only in a couple of weeks here, there's a tap takeover at City Arms in Manchester. We'll have a range of beers across keg and probably cask as well, in just a beautiful old local pub in the middle of Manchester.
Nice.
We have to taste all of our beers and talk to some experts from our team there. Later on, we're going to be at a couple of beer festivals too. In March, there's Sheffield Beer Week, where we have 3 pubs in Sheffield, the Greystones, Hallamshire House and the Stag's Head. And there'll be 3-course meal pairings with beer, tap takeovers, tutored tastings, and just a lot for this week-long celebration of beer in Sheffield. And then later on in April, there's the Great Derbyshire Beer Festival. Our location, it kind of spreads South Yorkshire and Derbyshire, and we've just kind of taken a lot of that. So from South Yorkshire to Derbyshire, where we're located, there's a 2-day beer festival in Derbyshire, which has the best of cask and keg beer that Derbyshire has to offer. That'll be in Bustler Market in Derby, and we're really looking forward to that too. There'll be more which comes. We're always trying to put on more events, and our tap room always has loads of stuff. So if you're interested in any of this, I'd suggest following us across socials and following the tap room as well. And we'll post about them as soon as we've organised them. And we'll keep on posting reminders to make sure that you all always know that stuff's going on.
Perfect. Well, I was myself down in the Eagle in Sheffield doing the tutored tasting last week. Great amount of people, and similar to this, but in person, of course, which often, we're able to then interact a little closer, but we had a good evening then, and we'll be doing the same, as you mentioned, Sheffield Beer Week down with a tutored food and beer pairings, which is always great fun to do. I know, Khan, you're a big fan of beer and food as well, as am I.
Yes.
A combination you can't really beat, I don't think. So I've been following Doreen on Twitter, who has Let's Be a Positive, which is always a good follow and a good read. And this week's about beer, snacks and food. Ties in nicely after you mentioned Staley Bridge there as well too. So perfect, really. You can have some nice beers, enjoy them there. You can enjoy them with a crisp butty sandwich or all sorts. If you keep an eye on our cans, we'll often put food pairings on too. So between the pubs that we have with food, we're always excited about it too. So could be some good events.
We've got a comment from Rob asking about what hops were in Bliss, which I neglected to say. But it's a range of hops: Cascade, Simcoe, Azaka, and Citra. So you see that there's a lot of very West Coast sea hop representation there, but with the Azaka as well, giving it a more rounded, softer taste too. So Cascade, Simcoe, Azaka, and Citra in the Bliss Point. The malts as well, there is a bit of wheat in it too. It's the low color Marisotto, which is the base for a lot of our beers, but with some wheat too, to give it a bit of a sweetness and a bit of a head retention in there too.
Yeah, perfect. I suppose with that, we'll talk about the next couple as a pair, and Khan had suggested this was a good way to go through these two. And so what we have here, we have Valerio and Kipling. So this is so we'll taste the Valerio and then the Kipling. But these ones, one's done with all Australian hops, one's with New Zealand hops. They're both light pale ale style, so it's quite nice to try them and sort of think about that difference, almost similarity to this difference in flavor, as well as they're coming from a similar part of the world with the ingredients. But we'll tuck into Valerio first. And so this one was created actually by one of our brewers, Ben, and he was very keen. He actually started brewing in Australia. He's English, but he'd gone over there, spent a year in New South Wales, brewing, making lots of fantastic beers with all the local ingredients. And he wanted to put together a beer, where he was using, again, that similar low color Marisotto base in there as well. But then there's the Galaxy, the Victoria's Secret, the Ella. So you're getting this nice combination of these big Aussie hops in there too. And so again, that light pale in color, and we'll get the similar look on this as the Kipling. And then as you get into that aroma, there's that kind of punchy tropical flavor, a little similar to, as Kana mentioned, with the Bliss Point, you're going to start to get some of those notes. And then when you drink it, there's a little more bitterness than Bliss Point in the style. It's not got as much softness, but it's a very refreshing, well-balanced style. And the name for this one, Valerio Ricchetti, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it exactly right, but he was actually a famous hermit around Griffith in New South Wales. So this is where Ben had begun his brewing, but he had been a local legend. He had actually lived in the caves around the area for 23 years, I believe it was. And so he was, like I say, a bit of a local legend. So Ben thought it'd be good to hark back to that when brewing an Australian style pale ale with Australian hops. And so a nice story to it as well. So we were all, of course, then straight away looking him up after Ben told us, like, oh, interesting. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference with the name, but as I say, a nice, easy drinking pale ale with that big hit of Australian hops in there too. And this one, it was been a bit of a seasonal beer, but a nice fun one. Again, with having put the Explorer pack together. As it says, you know, we're going to have a range not just of styles, but hops and from different countries too, as we work our way through. So with that, I'll pull on to the Kipling. So Kipling here, this is we call this one a South Pacific Pale Ale. And so in the same vein, we'll pour here. Kipling was named after, it's one of our oldest beers. We started brewing it at Thornbridge Hall. We did it as a cask beer originally. And many times since, we bring it back on cask. We were the first UK brewery to use Nelson Sauvin hops, which come over from New Zealand. Our head brewer at the time, he was actually from New Zealand, so he had lots of good links. He was able to get the hops over and use them. And so this beer's got that, this one for me is a little more kind of pithy, a little more grapefruity. That citrus is through, but it's not as bigly tropical as the Valerio, but it allows you, again, that little point of difference. We're brewing a series of single hop beers at the moment called Quiet Storm. And we really like brewing these because they do just allow you to pick up on the specific flavors of those hops. So you can then pick that out and say, oh, okay, in a beer down the line, you say, oh, I can get Nelson Sauvin in this or Galaxy or anything really that you're looking at. We've just done an Idaho 7 is the first version of Quiet Storm. So if you're into that and looking to really give a bit more color to your craft beer journey, your experience, you can pull out these single hops from these beer styles that we're doing. And Kipling really started that for us. So it's named for actually an area at Thornbridge Hall. It was called Kipling Corner. It had some Kipling quotes on the wall. And that's where we took that from. So again, one of the earliest and most favorite beers that we've done over time. And nice to compare as well. So again, don't feel pressure to drink them together, but if you drink one now and one tomorrow or something, and you can think back on those flavor profiles that we have there too. How have you found these two, Khan?
I'm like a lot of people, I'm really impressed with Kipling. I like them both. You can definitely get, there's a like soft orangey nature to Valerio, which I really like. And it is refreshing. Just like Gillian says, it is like a tropical fruit salad. Lots of mandarin and those sort of notes too. What I really like about Kipling though is Nelson Sauvin is named specifically because it's like from the Nelson area of New Zealand, and it's meant to taste a bit like Sauvignon Blanc, and you really get those sort of like really like white grapey, winey characteristics to it, while being unmistakably a beer. It's not pretending to be anything else, but it have those Leicester's little thiles in the back of the mouth, which can remind you of that wine. And yeah, it's just like you said, single hop beers allow you to work out what is giving it that flavor, and it's in Nelson Sauvin.
Perfect. And it is, like you say, a beer we've had for a long time, and it's been well loved. So whenever I see Kipling on cask, I have to have it myself. If I'm in one of our pubs around Sheffield or anywhere really, it's always a go-to for me too. So and then, so I'd mentioned earlier, you sort of talked through a little bit of marketing and the journey at the moment, Khan, and everything we have going on. So again, just to give a little bit, you know, while we're talking, we've talked about the history of Thornbridge and everything else. I'll tell you a little bit, you know, I'm the export manager at the brewery. We export into, we get beer out into 40 different countries. We are worldwide. most of it's across Europe. And at the moment, of course, with the restrictions, our retail's been going very well. You know, pubs are closed, so they're reopening, which is fantastic at the moment. So there's a big demand for lots of Thornbridge keg beers, particularly across the continent. We go into Asia as far as Australia, New Zealand. And our beers do have a great reputation worldwide. We've won a huge number of different awards. And, you know, we're always getting demand for Jaipur as well, which is fantastic. It's always great to see, you know, on the social media, on the marketing, beers turning up across sort of Finland into, you know, down to the Czech Republic and Austria. And again, as far as Japan or China or elsewhere too. So the beers we're drinking, you know, we of course do lots of it here in the domestic market, but we are building and building further afield as well. So if you're on holiday somewhere and bump into our beers, please also send us some photos as well. It's always nice to see them popping up too. So, so yeah, just to give you a little more on what we do here at the brewery. And then from there, I suppose next is.
Could I address a couple of questions?
Yeah, of course.
In the chat first. We've got 2 points which I'd like to jump on here. And Ian Redman, there's a little medal on his comment for me, which says that he's been following us for 5 years today, I think. So thanks, Ian. And he asks what the best pubs in Sheffield are, which I think, as a Sheffield native yourself, you're probably more equipped to talk about than me. I myself, I'm from Cornwall via Cambridge, so very, very much not. I'm only here recently, so I'm not. The only Sheffield pubs I know are our ones, which of course I would always recommend. And then Jonathan Chivers as well asked us about his favourite beer, which we don't have with us now, but we could touch upon Love Among the Ruins, which is one of my favourite too. So if we can have like a little detour to talk about that before we move on. Of
course. No, please, any question, anything like that. Really, we're just hanging out at home having a beer, so we're always happy to answer anything.
Yeah, let us know where you're drinking us and watching us and drinking as well. It's always good to know where everyone else is from.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, so our Sheffield pubs, for me, again, a little bias, like you say, Khan, we know, of course, and love our Thornbridge pubs. My closest one is the Greystones, which is a great, kind of family friendly, traditional boozer really in Sheffield. It's great for all the cask beers that we have on. So I'll often take the dog out, we'll go walk through the park and we'll finish up there at the Greystones and have a nice pint. Outside of that, I mean, if you ever get the train through Sheffield, you have to go to the Sheffield Tap. I worked there back in my university days many years ago, and it was always fantastic to go into, as a drinker as well. So they keep a huge range of beer on the bar. All the staff know their stuff, and it's great to just be able to pop into. And then otherwise, Kelham Island's always a safe bet. So if you get the chance to go down there, some very traditional pubs like the Kelham Island Tavern, they know so well how to keep a beer, really good pints of cask beer in there. And now it's come on a long way, that area as a whole. So if you get the chance to sort of wander through, you'll see lots of great pubs and just nice places to hang out and eat food as well. So those would probably be my top recommendations. But really, it's, there's a lot of fantastic neighborhood pubs now here in Sheffield. Actually, my most recent, I was in 2/3 in Abbeydale, which again, great selection of beers, always bustling on a weekend. So you can have a nice atmosphere and it's a great place to drink a pint too. Well, 2/3 of a pint, actually, as you might guess by the name. So yeah, no, for Sheffield pubs. And then Love Among the Ruin, Khan, I know you enjoy it as well. It's the Barrel Age series, firm favourites for all of us at the brewery. And they put something into, we brew lots of beers, 40% of our production is Jaipur. We always brew these big beers, because they have such demand. They're in all the supermarkets everywhere, as I mentioned, outside of the UK, that's the demand. But the brewers also want to be, they've tried all these fantastic barrel-aged beer styles. And so they come back to doing it themselves, getting barrels in, aging beers out. We've just released a cognac barrel-aged Imperial Stout recently, which is normally in bourbon barrels. And yeah, just a real great range. I mean, what's your favorite, Khan, of the barrel-aged beers?
Well, my favorite is probably a lot of people's favorite. I'm going right down the middle here by saying Mother's Ruin. I think Mother's Ruin, the aromatic gin-inspired sour beer, which is aged in gin barrels, is just exquisite. It's just really, really good. And I've been using it to try to win over a lot of people I know who don't like beer, who like wine, who like gin. And yeah, I won over my mum, who's a wine drinker, and
Nice.
my fiance, who's a gin drinker. And they just, whenever I see them, they're like, oh, well, is there some Mother's Ruin here with you too? So I just think it's extraordinary. But you mentioned the Necessary Evil cognac as well, and which is just a fantastic Imperial Stout, thick, flavorful. And we're doing a few more versions of it. And I got a sneak preview of a rum one, which is coming out in a little bit, that's just extraordinary. Yeah. There's some versions of that coming, and I probably did a bit of a Tom Holland by letting that one slip there. But there's some really extraordinary beers, and I'm always excited to be on the floor, chatting to the brewers and finding out what's coming next. And
no, it's probably for me the Necessary Bourbon Barrel is I think my top one. I've always had a bit of a soft spot, Bourbon County back in the day, all those big Imperial stouts aged out in bourbon barrels particularly. It just works so well. You get that extra like sweetness, the oak, everything comes together so well on top of that big roasty beer already. That has so much flavor to it. So that's probably, I took it to a couple of very cool, very crafty festivals last year, and where, everyone literally votes on the beers, and both times it turned up in the top 5% amongst hundreds of other really cool craft beers. So it's such just a stunning beer. And as you mentioned, the cognac version just brings a lot else to it too. So
good.
Yeah. And then, I've always been a fan of those Flanders, like the sort of Flemish red styles. Perfect. So Love Among the Ruins, anytime you can get that out, and especially for tastings, when we're going around and offering it to people, as you mentioned, Khan, you can get people who maybe are saying, oh, I don't really like beer that much, and then you pour them that, and it's just so different. It allows us to really open up and say to people, oh, okay, well, if you didn't like beer particularly, or you only drunk a certain style of beer, now we can try this and this, and suddenly it opens up a whole new world, really. So it's great that we work somewhere that has such a range. It makes our lives easier too, really. It's great. You can go out and say, oh, well, yeah, again, like if I'm at tasting or something, or we're on social media and recommending beers to people, it's easy to do from, behind you, Calm, that crazy selection of beers right there. It's that's just last year, and we'll be doing a lot more this year as well. So keeping out for those. We mentioned we'll keep everyone topped up with mentioning the different beers that come up. And talking of dark beers, so I'll talk through the next beer we have from our Explorer pack. So this is Market Porter. So we're going in a slightly different direction here, a bit of a darker beer. For any of those who've maybe had a beer already and are now moving between them, the best advice is always just give your mouth a bit of a swill out, have some water or something. Often if you go and do, beer tastings in places, they'll give out like very flavorless kind of dried crackers, and then you can have something between, and then lots of water as well, just to ensure that you're kind of trying to keep that palate fresh for the next set of beers. And so we'll crack into the Market Porter here. And so this one is so called because we opened the Market Cat in York. So we talked briefly about our Sheffield pubs, but we also have Thornbridge Co, where we teamed up with the team from Pibavar who run the Sheffield tap. And so we have pubs now in Birmingham, in Leeds, and in York as well. And when we first opened the pub in York, the Market Cat, we said, okay, we want to have its own beer. We want something for the launch. We'll just do it as a bit of a one-off. So we discussed what style. And in our range, we've got loads of fantastic dark beers, but actually we don't really have kind of just a straight go-to porter style. So we thought, perfect, we'll do that, 4.5%. So we called it the Market Porter after the Market Cat. Put it on cask there, went down well, got a bit of demand for casks, and all of a sudden it's become one of our core beers. Again, we've realized now there is quite a nice market for that. We do Cocoa Wonderland, we do our Luceria series, we do our Pardus series, but just that 4.5%, no gimmicks, no extras, nothing. It's just really good, well-made beer. And actually now I talked earlier about export, but We do find a good demand for this style in certain countries. In Finland, for example, this is in a couple of different retail chains there at the moment. And other places we continue to get that pull through for the style. And so instantly we'll see there on the color. I mean, if you really hold up a stout or a porter, you will start to notice that kind of readiness to it. But it's that much darker beer. And from a distance, you're looking at it, you know, it's a black body. It's got that tan head on there. And that's from the malts we're using. So these are darker malts. We'll begin with a base of that Maris Otter. We'll add in these darker malts that give you that color, and they'll bring in some flavor as well. It's that roasty chocolate, little bit of kind of espresso is going to start coming through here. And for me, as it warms up nicely, the market porter, it'll start to sweeten as well. You'll get a little treacle, that little kind of caramel coming in. And really, this is, for me, actually one of my go-to beers at home. So I'll get it out, and people will differ in the temperatures they enjoy beers at. We put the temperature on the can that we recommend, but I know people might have an area in their house or their garage, their cellar, where they keep different beers. So for me, I'll keep it in the fridge or the cellar, and I'll get it out, if it's in the fridge, about 20 minutes before I enjoy it, to make sure it's really opened up. It's got a great warmth and flavor to it at that point. And just savor it. Even at 4.5%, that flavor comes right through. So a real nice favorite sort of go-to for me. How about you, Khan? What do you think of this one?
I really like it. I'm not going to say I'm not, though, to be honest. if I come through it, yeah, yeah, I really rate it. I wasn't a huge dark beer fan before I came to Thornbridge, but through just exposure, just being given things, I've really learned to appreciate a lot of these beers. Market porter has that roastiness. It's kind of almost, I think I mentioned to you when you were training me up on these, that it reminded me of like roast vegetables in like a really, really good way. There's a gentle sweetness, there's a burnt like crispiness almost to the back of the throat here, and it's like a meal, and I like that. I've got a bunch of it coming in myself. Nice. In my allowance, which I'm really looking forward to tapping into. As you've said it all. It's a classic no nonsense beer, and there's a huge place in my heart for that type of beer.
Good, yeah, and yeah, we see that demand, like you say. It's people do want just a nice one. The brewers are always excited when we brew like a straight sort of beer style like that. One we don't have in the pack today is Lucas, which is our Helles lager. But the brewers, you know, that's a real pride and joy beer for them. If you've not had it before, it's just a really classic, straight Germanic style lager. It's so difficult to brew something like that and get it correct. You know, there's nowhere to hide on a lager style beer. So when the brewers are making these fantastic beers that have to be bang on to a style, without any extras or anything like that, it is a challenge, but it's also, you know, something that they certainly appreciate. So yeah, it's good as well when everyone enjoys making and drinking the beers too. So yeah. Well, after that, have we got any other questions or comments or anything coming in there, Khan, in between the beers?
Well, yeah, you might have seen me like looking very focused in like the corner of my screen when I was doing this. Is because I was trying to scroll back to find this wallpaper for Paul Stevens, who asked if you can download it anywhere. It was from a series I thought would be a cool idea to have collages of all the beers that we did in various categories over the course of 2021. So we had a cask beer one, a beer club one. We'll talk about Thornbridge Beer Club later on in the taster. We had a collaboration one, and we had this one, which is just all of them, just every beer we did in 2021, put in this massive, great big square. So actually, when you kind of look at it, it's really hard to pick out what it is. I just really wanted that zoomable nature to get people clicking on the Instagram picture, really. And I'm really proud of it, and I've just been using it in all the Zooms I've had, just because I think it's so cool. I will be posting in the comments at the end, so I don't have to spend ages scrolling down in the chat. I'll post it all in the comments after we're done, all four posts. All four blog posts, which all have these pictures in them too. So you can have a read of those blogs and download these pictures if you'd like to as well. We have a couple more as well. Yep. So we have people talking about where they're drinking from. So Gillian is in Derby, so that's really, really close. Nice. Jonathan is in Newmarket, so it's quite close to Cambridge, where I'm from. 3 generations enjoying the beers. So just the whole three generations of the family sitting around the laptop watching us talk nonsense about some about the beer that we're drinking. So brilliant, really, really pleased to do that.
Yeah, nice.
That's also, it's apparently Stephen's 4-year anniversary following us, which is also very cool.
Thank you.
And Simon Krieber has asked us which brewery would we most like to collaborate with, which is interesting because we've collaborated with so many amazing people, and we've got a few more amazing collabs lined up this year. So I won't spoil them. I'll let you tell me what I'm allowed to spoil and what I can't, or we can talk about the ones which we've already done.
No, well, yeah, we'd like to keep some secrets. It's always exciting, but needless to say, we've got a good range of breweries upcoming. It's a hugely friendly industry. You know, we know people from festivals, events, drinking in the pub. It's great to be able to come in and say, oh, okay, let's, we've drunk some beers together, we've enjoyed them, let's make something. And, a good example of that is Super User, which we've actually just done in the last January TBC box. And so that was a collab with Elusive. So Andy from Elusive knows a number of people at Thornbridge, from the brewers, myself, Dom, our sales director. And so he's then, we've been chatting to him on and off. He's been making some amazing beers down at Elusive as well. And so we said, okay, perfect, let's team up on a beer. Here's a good chance. So, they're often not that formal, but it's just nice to be able to work with people. So that one sticks out, maybe because it's the most recent, but it is, it was a nice one to be able to do. And a lot of the time that's been the case, really. And so if someone knows, someone from a different brewery, then we all get to meet them as well, and it just expands that network. So yeah, it's really fun doing them. Certainly, as Khan says, we'll have lots more coming out this year. But yeah, please keep an eye out and hopefully enjoyed them. Actually, one sort of thinking of is Simple Things was good fun as well. So where we'd actually brewed a beer together many years ago for the Homebrew Challenge, the Raindrops on Roses. And then after that, we'd come together to create a second beer to that, the Whiskers on Kittens. So collab many years in the making, effectively. So yeah, different stories between them, different ways of coming up with them, but yeah, always enjoyable to do. So yeah, keep an eye out for some more fun ones coming up soon.
Yeah, we've the couple which I'm most excited about, which we have already done. My favorite craft brewer, which isn't Thornbridge, is Wild Beer Co, and we did a fantastic collab with them with Release of Stars, which is about releasing bound files, which is a boring brewery expression, but basically means just like flavors you wouldn't be able to get otherwise in a beer. And it, like the Kipling, has this really great Sauvignon Blanc winey sort of taste, which is fascinating to come across in a beer. And the fact that like two of my of the breweries that got me into drinking beer in the first place were working together while I was working for one of them was incredibly cool. And my favorite beer collab, like the collab beer that we've done overall, was Dotterel, which is quite recent, which is with Squawk, which is a very cool Manchester brewery, where we did a South Pacific style beer like Valerio, like Kipling, which is just really fresh, really fruity, lots of stone fruit flavors. And they use Nectaron, which I think is a relatively new and exciting hop in this country, which has nectarine stone fruit flavors. And is, in case anybody wants to know what people working in the brewery think about these collabs, there's so much hype. No matter how excited any of you are about a beer at any point, that's all we're talking about all day. I'm out of hours and I'm here talking about beer and talking so excitedly about a beer which I drank at work. Yeah, so these collabs are incredibly exciting. And Gillian has asked, how do you select who you work with? Would you turn anyone down if your ethics didn't align? And we won't talk any more specifically than that, but we have. That has happened. And because I think the ethics of our company is something which a lot of us think are really important, but it goes beyond just these are our ideals, you don't match our ideals. It's because if somewhere doesn't have good ethics, that means they're probably not very good to the people they work with, and we don't want to expose our people to that sort of environment either. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think we can move on to the next.
All right. Well,
quite a long detour there, but
no. Well, we've got a collab coming up in the tasting shortly as well, but I didn't want to jump on that one just yet. We'll get into more detail. But this beer here, so this was originally brewed to celebrate 15 years of Thornbridge and also, of course, 15 years of Jaipur. And so it's a beer we've now done for a couple of years. We did, for those who may remember, when it was the 10th anniversary, we did Jaipur 10 or Jaipur X. Take your pick with how we have many different ways people call it. Jaipur Kiss was probably my favorite for that one. But that's the big 10% Imperial IPA version of Jaipur. And so after that, we thought, okay, what should we do at 15? And we thought maybe Jaipur 15 is possibly a bit over the top. So we thought instead what we'll do is a DDH version. So a double dry hopped version of Jaipur. And the brewers were sort of thinking about how to do this. And in the end just said, well, let's try it with double the amount of hops exactly. So do it as we want it to. It's just lots and lots of hops. It comes in at the same ABV as Jaipur at 5.9. You notice there's a bit of a haze to this one now as well. And so this one fits more towards, we drank earlier, the Bliss point. It's more in that kind of slightly New England style category here. But those hops, it shows what you can do again with that same base. And then just adding lots more hops to that. So all the same ones as before, but hopefully just gives you another way to try and talk about and think, you know, about Jaipur. So we brewed it as that one off. And as you can see now, it's in printed cans. It's one that we've wanted to do for, keep going really for a while. And we do plan to as well. So as I say, you get that haze, you get that fantastic head retention on the top. And then you're going to start instantly, you get that aroma, you're like, oh, that's Jaipur. And then it just punches that little extra. You get that little more aromatic. The bitterness is slightly less. So it's just, again, a different way to experience, a different way to enjoy our flagship beer. How have you found this one, Khan?
It's good. I always feel a bit weird just saying I love it again, but I really do. I really do. This is one of the first. This was, I think, the first. No, it's the second. The first was I Love You, William Mary. The first pint I had since when I started, and it was basically I'd had my interview a couple of days before, and they said, "Come on your first day of work. It starts at 5 p.m. and we will buy you beer all evening." And I'd had Jaipur before, of course, and Jaipur is such an iconic, incredible beer, which even now I'm still learning about how like significant it was. And I genuinely think that this improves on it because I really like that haziness. I really like that aromatics. Dry hopping is present in almost all the beers, which I'm really, really excited about. And it takes that incredible base of one of the most important beers in UK history, and it just makes it even fresher, even fuller, and just even more like almost chewy with like these fruity flavors. And yeah, I really like it. And it's a regular purchase for me.
Good. Yeah, and for me too. You know, so when you mentioned that sort of heritage that comes with Jaipur as well. And so just to give you a little backstory on it as well, the original Jaipur. So we started brewing, as I mentioned, at Thornbridge Hall, and back in 2005. So the two brewers at the time, you know, they were young guys. They'd come in. They hadn't really, they'd studied brewing. They had their degrees in brewing, but they hadn't actually been working elsewhere. So they were coming in with this great, fresh mindset. And they were trying Sierra Nevada, they were trying Brooklyn, they were trying these great beers from the States. And like, well, you know, these are English styles that have been brewed there just using the local ingredients, but they taste amazing. So brought in a load of American hops and started brewing. And so we brewed this 5.9% IPA. And of course, you know, now in 2022, 5.9% feels fairly, probably somewhere in the middle for an ABV on a craft beer. However, back then, you know, people said, this is rocket fuel, it's madness, no one will buy this crazy strength beer. But of course they did. So we ended up starting to sell this out in cask out and about. And at the time, people didn't even really look at pump clips for the ABV. They'd see the name, be like, oh, it's on cask, it must be 3 or 4%. So we did get the blame for a number of sore heads, particularly around Sheffield when Jaipur first came out. And it's kept that reputation, particularly around the local area. But people just kept calling up, and
makes you Jaipurly.
Yes, Jaipurly.
Yeah.
They were Jaipured on the evening and Jaipurly in the morning was an often refrain in Sheffield. And so people were calling up for this beer. All these pubs had heard about it. It won best beer in Sheffield. It kept winning all these camera awards all over the country. And we've never wanted to be a one beer brewery. We're sitting here actually without the flagship regular Jaipur, doing all these other beers, but it's still that beer today. It makes up 40%. It helped our expansion. I mentioned briefly earlier, I still get calls from people in different countries all over saying, "Oh, we want Jaipur. Where can we get it from here and here?" And so it's been that beer for us. And actually, for me, you mentioned, Khan, you're always getting the DDH version on your allowance, but I always come back to the classic myself. It's I've talked about it for the best part of 10 years. I've drunk it for that long, and still I come back to it. I still have it in the fridge here. If I'm out and about and I see it on cask, I say it's Kipling's one and Jaipur. If I see it, I'll make a dart for it as well. It still feels like a bit of a treat to have a nice cask Jaipur in the Greystones. It is great. So it's been that long, and the flavor, everything I want from it. It still uses those, you mentioned earlier, Carl, those C hops. So it's that Cascade, Centennial, Chinook. It's got all these classics in there. Hatarnum's kind of the one that you don't often see that much, but it's not got that new wave of Citra Mosaic. But for me, it just does not need it. It works so well with that pineapple-y, grapefruity, just that little sweetness that comes in, especially with the DDH, but then the bitter finish just helps keep it nice and drinkable. So for those who hopefully have tried Jaipur before, if you haven't, please give the classic a go and compare it now to the newer DDH version as well. And so from there, I think, did you want to tell us a little bit about TBC, Khan? You've got most of the beers behind you. And just for anyone who's not a member, we actually do tastings like this every month as well, where we talk through the beers. But yeah, please tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, so Thornbridge Beer Club has been going for just over a year now. I think it started late 2019. No, not 2019.
2020.
Late 2020.
Yeah, it's
a year up.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, I wrote a whole article about this. I should know about it. So it basically came about because loads of pubs were closed, and we were doing a huge amount of trade online, much more than we were used to, much more than we thought we were ever going to do. And we thought, well, we're releasing all these new beers. We want to keep on treating people at home, treating people to these really cool experimental stuff that we're doing, as well as bringing back classics again. And what better way to do that than to have a subscription service where people could buy loads of new beers at a specific, easy to remember price. And yeah, we've been doing this every month, releasing all of our basically all of our new beers through Thornbridge Beer Club. And we have, I think, well over 1,000 members now, and so it's grown hugely, and we're really, really proud of it. And you can join it too, and you can be the first to try all of these exciting beers which we're talking about, and which will come up. It's £30 a month. You get a 15% discount across our store. There's tutored tastings. There's a prize draw to win a case of Jaipur. There's a whole bunch of it. I'll put a link in the comments when we're done. The most exciting part about Beer Club, and the reason why I always remember it, is the new beers. So coming out this month, we have 5 beers, two of each, all of them 440 cans. The first of which has already been released generally, but it was released to Beer Club first. That was Double Green Mountain. Some of you might have had Green Mountain, which is our sessionable Vermont style hazy IPA, and this is a double IPA version of it. It's double the strength. I think actually literally double the hops to create this just really absurd, brilliant, really strong beer. Which I had people emailing and messaging saying, when is Double Green Mountain coming back? When is it? As soon as we announced it, saying, hey, this will be out in Beer Club next month, people were sending DMs to say, why can't I buy it right now? So that's one of them. A couple of cask favorites are coming out in can for the first time, McConnell's, which some of you might have tasted on cast before, which is a vanilla stout. So we have, as James mentioned, we have a lot of more experimental, a little bit more like flavored stouts and porters, which we're really proud of before we brought out Market Porter. And McConnell's is a really old school one, which we really like, and that's coming out in can. I think we talked about food pairings before, and you described it as like replacing the coffee and an affogato, which is just the most delightful thing I could think of doing. It's really cool. In terms of collabs too, we have two, well, I think technically three, but we've got three more collabs in it. So Bunderbust, which is a northern micro chain almost, a range of Indian street food restaurants. They opened a brewery, a craft brewery of their own. They worked with us to make a cask hazy pale called Impromptu Ladder Convention, which is a really silly name, which people seem to love. And that's coming out in cans. We're also doing another collab with them soon. They've posted about that on their Instagram, so I think that we can also mention that ourselves. So we love working with them, and that's coming out in can for the first time. You mentioned Idaho 7 earlier, and the Quiet Storm, and I'll be talking about Idaho 7 even more for the upcoming Westie, which we're doing. But that's a really, really big part of our Firestone Walker collab Pandera, which is coming back, which is just a really, really great, huge West Coast IPA, which we love, and everyone else seems to love. And the final can of that beer club is Twin Peaks, which was originally another legendary US brewery, Sierra Nevada's first collab with a UK brewery, and now we're releasing it with our own recipe here, and it's an Anglo-American pale ale, so it uses an English style malt base but with an American style hop on top, and I've not had that before, so I am really, really excited to try that. Sounds brilliant, especially considering everyone into craft beer has had Sierra Nevada Pale before, which is just a legendary beer, so I'm really looking forward to that too. So yeah, every month we release all of our new beers through Beer Club, and it's £30 a month. There's loads of other stuff to it, and we do more of this, which is a highlight of my work month as well. So I'll link about that later.
Should be good. I mean, you mentioned Sierra. That was I think it was a lot of people's, but that was my gateway beer way back when for getting into beer. And I remember drinking it and thinking, oh, this is bitter, but what's all this flavor? Like, really excited to try it. And then it grows from there. So brewing with them was fantastic. And even the name is, they brew in the Sierra Nevadas, they brew near the big mountain range there. And of course, we're in the Peak District, so it ties in nicely. And as Khan mentioned as well, we'll be doing, tastings. So if you enjoy getting on Zoom, drinking some beers, learning a little more about it, we will do the monthly ones. And I don't know if it's a bit lame. I'm also a member of Beer Club myself anyway, even though I do the tastings and that, to be honest, I just like getting all the boxes every month. It's great. I turn up and there's a box ready for me. So it's a nice way to make sure I have all the new beers in the fridge as well. So
like a little present every month.
Yeah, come and join us. And then should we crack on the next beer there, Khan? Do you want to talk us through? We got two more to talk about a little bit, and Khan will be taking us through those.
So the next one is I Do Not Seek, I Find. You've mentioned collaborations before. This is our collaboration with Newtown Park Brewing Co, who are a brewery based in Bristol. I think that they opened really recently as well. I think they don't have an exact opening date when I was reading about them, but they're very new, and a lot of people are really, really excited for them. Like we were. A lot of the breweries we worked with last year were really small, up and coming, exciting breweries, and this is one of them here. So the name is a Pablo Picasso quote, because Newton Park love their Picasso, and so we quoted that too. So we'll give that a bit of a pour here. Now it's a classic West Coast IPA, in which we're really trying to bring back here. We're known, one of the things Thornbridge is most famous for, as we mentioned, Jaipur is technically a West Coast IPA. So if you look here, it's got incredible, very, very clear, crisp color with not a touch of haze. When you taste it, it's 7%. And it's a beautiful, crisp, like seriously clean bitterness there. Same sort of West Coast punch, which you expect. The citrus and the pine are all there. It's so clean, it's so crisp. So this is very much what, for a lot of people before the whole haze trend came, was what craft beer was. And it's what we're famous for and what we love to do. We've made a few in the past with a lot of people come to us specifically to say, I want to make a West Coast IPA because no one makes one like you. And so we just sit there and go, yeah, of course, yeah. We love to do it. So I'll talk a bit about the hops and that, because we mentioned Idaho 7, and it's just such an incredible hop. So Idaho 7 is a new C hop style hop. So by that I mean it's a citrusy, piney American style hop, a lot like Cascade and Columbus, which you've had before. And it's really cool. And we're using it in a lot of things. If you want to know exactly what it brings, you can see it in the Quiet Storm, which James mentioned earlier. And what it brings is that citrus flavor. It is that pine flavor you expect, but with a really subtle, like sophisticated, herby, grassy element too, which I think really elevates whatever's in. The other hops in this are Chinook, which is another big American sea hop, which will supply a lot of the bitterness and the punch which you get from here. And interestingly, Mosaic as well, which isn't normally a huge West Coast hop, but it's providing a lot of balance. And why this kind of tastes so fresh and exciting, despite being a style which has been tread by craft breweries and been tread by us a lot. But yeah, it's a fantastic example of a style and a fantastic example of how the style is evolving now, and it's a good drink. What do you think of it, James?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one thing you touched on briefly was a lot of the breweries we've brewed with. So we've done a lot of like collabs with all the sort of bigger craft brewing names over the years who, we get on very well with. But part of it, actually speared by Dom, our sales director, was working with breweries who had actually only just started up. Because of course, the last 2 years to start a brewery is really tricky time to start one, especially with the pub closures, everything going on. So you may have noticed a trend for some of the breweries we collabed with last year were with all these new breweries, guys who've literally just set up. And so it's a chance to work with them. And, again, fair play to them for doing it. And we've tried all their beers. They're fantastic from a lot of the guys who are just starting out, particularly Newtown Park, of course, as well, as you say. So yeah, for me, as you mentioned, we're known for our West Coast styles. Jaipur, really, no one was sort of calling them West Coast when we started brewing it. It was just a microbrewery beer before even craft beer terms were around. So, but we've grown into that. We do love them, and yeah, this is a good example of why. So I've been enjoying a few of these myself here over the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah.
Have we got any more questions or anything in there, Khan? Has anything popped up? We've got one more beer to talk about, but if there's anyone asking anything, or again, please keep throwing any questions into the chat with us.
Okay, so we had some suggestions of people who they'd like us to collab with. Jonathan suggested Oakham Ales, which I think everyone is very familiar with Oakham Ales and Citra specifically. Yeah. Rob suggested Redemption Brewery.
Nice. Andy.
A big cask background. Rob has also asked, do we ever publish homebrew scale recipes? Which I know that we've definitely done talks about it. That's one of the stories behind Super User, the collab with Elusive, which we did before, is Dom Driscoll, our operations, head of operations in the brewery. He did a talk about Colorado Red, where he gave a step-by-step recipe for it. And then Andy from Elusive went and made that beer and then used a slightly different hop profile and made a Level Up, which allowed him to start brewing as Elusive properly. But I don't think we've ever formally published homebrew recipes, unless I'm mistaken, James.
No, I mean, we've done little bits and pieces for certain beers, but to be honest, often even through social media, get in touch. Our brewers are always present upon there. If you got any quick questions, ask away. You'll see them under the Thornbridge handles. If you're really keen for something, just drop an email over to the brewery as well. And then it'd go on to the brewers. Like you say, we've had some of our brewers out doing homebrew challenges. We've done homebrew challenges. I mentioned with the Simple Things when we did Raindrops and Roses was a homebrew challenge winner, sort of a couple of years ago now. But no, there's always been that. We've had brewers join us who had started as home brewers and then gone on to, want to get involved and start at the brewery too. So I'd just get in touch really if there's anything really specific, and we can always try and help where you need.
Yeah, both Dom and Rob, who are like our top two in the brewing team, they're both very active on Twitter, and they're both really nice. So if you ask them something, then they're really encouraging. So I reckon that they would definitely help you if you message them direct. A lot of people, there seems to be a little bit of a bun fight in the comments about what sort of flavors they're getting from I Do Not Seek, which it's going back and forth about like, oh well, I get pine, I get pineapple, and it's great to see to see so much passion about it. I'm going to say that you're all right.
And I mean, Khan, you and I have talked about it, between us ourselves. Whenever you're tasting these beers, people's palates are different. We do the tasting notes, we put stuff together, we say, okay, this is what we'll be experiencing from this. But I've done many tastings over the years, and I'll go and chat to people and they'll say, oh, I get, X flavor from this. And you're like, oh, okay, fantastic. And some, I can go back and be like, oh, I understand, what you mean. Different people will pull out different flavors. So it's, as long as you're enjoying the beer, really, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So we can steer you in the right direction, but after that, then it's your own enjoyment from there onwards.
I often say there's no right or wrong way to like beer. You just, if you like beer, that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned briefly earlier, people particularly have talked to me about the areas they will keep their beer in. And so again, it's, we put the temperatures on and stuff, but if you enjoy it in a certain way, that's it. That's all it needs. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Then I think we can move on to the final beer.
Yeah, perfect. Please.
So, Chocolate Orange Pardus. This was released as part of our Christmas release range of stuff. We were thinking about the I was talking about the beer and immediately saw Jonathan come through with a comment about what you think I Do Not Seek tastes like. Grandad said roast chicken. Pretty sure that's wrong. I mean, okay, lemon and herb.
If it makes you think of something like that, why not? Yeah,
I like lemon, herb, a little bit of umami. I think Grandad's onto something there, Jonathan. So perhaps, or he's eating some roast chicken. So Chocolate Orange Pardus. I was so excited when this beer was announced because I'm a huge fan of citrus beers. I just became a huge fan of Imperial Stouts. Citrus and beer is massive because of hops. It really, really works. Chocolate and malts works really well. And obviously the best form of chocolate without any type of debate is a Terry's Chocolate Orange. So when this was announced, it's thrilling. I was absolutely thrilled with it, especially because it was an adaptation of one of our most iconic Imperial Stouts, the Pardus. If any of you have had any of the versions of Pardus before this, it's a real treat. And this is a fantastic one as well. And it definitely meets it. But if you had this and you like it, and you can find the old editions, I would definitely give them a go. And there'll be more coming out soon as well, which obviously I will recommend. So you've cracked yours already. I'm going to crack that.
I'm straight in there.
You
make me thirsty talking about it, Cam.
Yeah. So if you look at it, it's an absolutely gorgeous pitch black color with a really thick, luscious white head. And the first thing you smell when you smell it is that orange oil smell of the chocolate orange. So you smell the chocolate, the main flavor is this massive punch of orange oil. And which, as I'm told by the brewers, is because we use actual orange oil in it. So the orange flavor and the chocolate oranges come from adding orange oil to the cocoa solids when you're making chocolate. And this one, we take orange oil, we add a bit of alcohol so it can dissolve, so making it orange extract. But orange oil comes from orange rind, so it's real, natural, straight from an orange. And then we put that in the beer to give it not just an orangey smell, but an orange smell which is directly reminiscent of the chocolate oranges which you would be using over Christmas. And you combine that with a phenomenally powerful malt bill. Just, I'll look it up too, because it's impossible to remember because it's such a long list of malts. There's low color Maris Otter, Munich, brown, crystal, wheat, chocolate, obviously, roasted barley, and black malt. So it's this massive malt bill, creating this just huge, rich, powerful flavor with just a sweetness of smooth of the cocoa, which we put in. And then, of course, on the top of that, that incredibly zesty, airy aroma of the orange, which just makes it like sinking in the back of a chair at the end of a Christmas day. Everyone's talking around you and you're just there, just tucking into either chocolate orange or a fantastic beer. And it's like a bit like going home. It's really great.
Nice. Yeah, couldn't have said it better. It's like I say, it's been a great beer for dark time of year. You can really relax, enjoy it. I'm a Terry's chocolate orange fan as well. So, you know, the chocolate orange is a great combination. So the minute you smell it, you're taken away. I did that tasting last week, as I mentioned, at the Eagle Pub, and we finished with this one, and it's a dessert beer by itself, really. It does end really nicely in that way. And as you mentioned, the Pardus series is that great Imperial Stout base the brewers put together. They are really proud of it, and then just work very hard to get the really the right additions for it. We don't use everything. There's lots of ideas we'll discuss and we know won't work. So we only want the ones that are going to come in fully and it can be truly appreciated too. So yeah, for me, a nice one to finish the sort of series of beers as well this evening on, I think too, as I mentioned, a nice dessert.
Yeah, we've got Jonathan Chivers saying that it's the beer of a night for two of them. Of the three multi-generational family watching us here.
Nice.
Yeah, fair enough. It's an incredible beer. One thing which like beer nerds of you might be interested in is how just the alterations which we made to the original recipe Pardus to this one. The original recipe had Bramley Cross and Fuggles hops in it, but we found that with the addition of the orange fat, it was just a bit too bitter, a bit too citrus to it. So we pulled back on the Fuggles, and it's just Bramley Cross in this one to allow the additional flavors to really speak as opposed to being overpowered. While the malt bill remains the same, it remains incredible, as it were. So
definitely. And so I think, are there any more questions in there, Khan? Is anything on the chat there before we start to round up?
I think because we've been addressing it as it goes along,
perfect.
There isn't lots. I think Paul Stevens is excited to try McConnell's, just like I am. Yeah,
me too. I've not had it in can format ever. I've had lots of casks of it, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how carbonation will change it. It'll give it a nice little tickle, I think, which I'm really looking forward to. Kev, I think it's the only thing Kev's commented that he tried to visit us, but he couldn't because the road was being resurfaced, which I'm really sorry that you couldn't visit us, Kev. But if you saw the road before, well, please come back soon and drive in now and have a proper pint at the tap room, because it's my local. I live really close. After work, I regularly have a pint there and a pizza, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. So come on.
As you say, Can, please do come and see us at the brewery. You'll see the magic happen as it's, really from there. You can join on if you've enjoyed what we've done tonight. Matt is our experience manager at the brewery, and he does, we used to do sort of brewery tours, but now it'll be a tutored tasting similar to this in person, but you are maybe 20 feet from actually all the brewing itself occurring. So you'll really see it, really feel it. So if that's something that interests you, please do. Hopefully we'll see you at the brewery. Khan writes lots of fantastic blogs on the website. So if you're sort of interested in anything we've been talking about, head over to there and you can read through all the bits. They're coming out regularly, just a little bit of an update on either the beers, the brewery, whatever's going on as well. And you can always reach out to us on, email, social media, find us there, to the main Thornbridge account. I'm on Twitter as well. Always just send us some messages and get in touch with any more questions. And so I think otherwise, anything else you wanted to mention, Khan, or I think we're sort of getting towards the end of it.
No, I will comment. I'll post in the comments the links to the blogs, which will have the pictures. And I will also link the beer club subscribe thing if anyone's interested in that. If anyone wants to post a comment, this is your last chance, because we'll be signing off soon. Oh, Ian said the pizza in the tap room is awesome. It is. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a good lunchtime trip for me as well, often when I'm out of the office.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the main thing that I would say is, if you want to keep abreast of it, probably the best way to do so, if you don't want to join Beer Club, is to sign up to our mailing list, which you can do on our website. It's quite obvious. If you just scroll down to the bottom, and if this is your first time you signed up, you will get a discount of the shop too. Our mailing, the first people who find out about things are Beer Club. The second people to find out are our mailing list, and then we put it on socials. Then if you don't want to do any of that, please do like and comment and do all that. It makes me look good. It also pushes everything up, and it's just great hearing from people. I love it when people post to their stories on Instagram a picture of them drinking the beer, because I love to regram it and I love to see what sort of community we have. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of people saying that they like the tap room and they had a good time tonight.
Good. Oh, good. Thank you.
So yeah, it's been great chatting to all of you, seeing the same sort of faces come up and up, asking questions. It's been great. It's made it all worth it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for organising it, Khan, putting it together, and getting us online as well. You're far better than I am with any of this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's good and nice to have some beers and talk to people. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Hopefully you all enjoyed the beers, and you still got some more but now you know a little more about them when you're enjoying them as well. So finally, just to say, cheers from myself, from Khan, from
cheers.
Anyone at the brewery you come and see. Please do visit us, get in touch with us, and enjoy the beers as well. So thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Good night.